Hi guys, Lori here. I'm here today to do my top 10 reads of 2019 that are not fantasy and science fiction themed. I actually had 10, which actually I didn't have last year, which I think is pretty good. I actually had I had a better balanced year. Like I read a fair amount of contemporary and a fair amount of fantasy and a fair amount of other things. But these are the top 10 books that just stood out to me in this genre and I wanted to share them with you guys. Um, and yeah, let's get into it. So, the first book I'm going to chat about, and I'm just doing these in the order that I read them, not in like the best order, because I don't really think, I just don't do that. I don't think there's a top, there's not, to me, there's not a top read of my year, because all these books are equally good in their own ways. But these are just the books that stood out to me. So, the first book I'm going to chat about is The Lying Woods by Ashley Elston. This was the first Ashley Elston book that I read, and I actually really loved it. I thought it was a nice balance between contemporary with hints of elements of like a mystery. Basically follows this young boy, and he realizes that his dad has been involved in some insider trading and has since ran off, and he's kind of dealing with the aftermath. And that's one storyline. And then you see somebody from his past as a child, and you see their like a summer as they when they're growing up. The stories collide in really unexpected ways, and it was a really fast-paced story. Definitely more of a contemporary, but the twist at the end shook me. So I'm really excited to read more of her mystery books because I have quite a few left on my TBR. But you rarely ever see books from a male point of view, only from a male point of view. And this one had two male point of views, which I was so excited for. So yeah, this was the first book that really stood out to me and one that made me want to read more of Ashley Elston. And I was so excited for a male main character. So those are some of the reasons that this book made this list. The next book that I am going to chat about in this video is The Fill-In Boyfriend by Casey West. I had made it my mission to finish all of Casey West's back canon in 2020, and I finished all her contemporary books, which I thought was actually quite impressive. So this book was one that just stood out to me. It was a listen. Basically follows this girl named Gia, and she is dumped on prom night in the parking lot, which is horrible. And she winds up, because she's so afraid of saving face and everyone talking about her, she winds up having a guy that she meets in the parking lot wind up being her date, and they wind up having a relationship through this book. And it was just so fun. I love the fake dating trope, and this trope was just so fun. I love the characters. I love the setting. I love the group of characters, like the friend dynamics. And I just found it to be so fun. That's why I made this list. It was a book that I definitely enjoyed. I don't think they're my favorite Casey West couple. That honor goes to Love Life in the Lists. But it was such a fun read, one that I read super fast, and I really grew to like these characters so, so much. And I cannot wait to see what Casey West is going to give me in 2020 to read. The next book that I am going to chat about is Only a Breath Apart by Katie McGarrett. This is the first book of hers in a new series, and it basically follows Scarlett. I cannot remember his name, but they live in a small town. They were best friends when they were younger, and some stuff happened that kind of separated them, but they have to wind up being in each other's good graces for various reasons. And I love this book. It was an emotionally hard-hitting novel, dealt with a lot of topics like abuse, verbal, and also dealt with like grief, also like rekindled romance, rekindled friendship. It built like a big cast of characters that I really, really like, and I'm really excited for Echoes Between Us, which is coming out in early 2020. I have an arc of it that I'm really hoping to tackle as well. But these characters were one that definitely stood out to me. They're not my favorite couple, but they really did capture me from page one, and I really cannot wait to see what happens to the next couple that we meet in Echoes Between Us, and it's going to be high on my 2020 reading list. But I thought that this had a nice balance of romance, harder issues, but also just a sweet contemporary with a blast from the past romance that I really wound up enjoying. So that is why Only a Breath Apart made the list. Sorry, I keep saying Echoes Between Us, but that's the next book that's coming out next year. But yeah, that's why that book made the list, and I hope if you guys haven't checked it out, you will consider checking it out. And the next book I'm going to chat about is Always Never Yours by Emily Weberly and Austin Sigmund Brook. This book was a Shakespeare retelling in modern times. It was basically a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and I love this book. I had just gotten over putting up my show of Willy Wonka, and I just loved it. It basically followed this girl, and she is so set on being a director in her future, but the and she wants to get into this college. The only requirement is that one of the requirements, even if you're being a director, is you have to act in a show to get an experience of that side. So she winds up trying out for her high school's productions of Romeo and Juliet, thinking she'll get a small part, and she winds up with the lead. And she winds up developing a relationship with this character who's working on the show in some capacity. And it was a fun, fluffy, enjoyable read. I loved it. I found it to be so compelling, so fast paced, so realistic of theater life as a theater teacher. I felt like it was really, really, really realistic, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the romance was great. I loved the end of the book, and it just was one that just put a smile on my face. And I love Romeo and Juliet, and it had a much. It just, I like the ending. I thought the ending was so good. I loved the characters, and I really was excited to see their cameo in If I'm Being Honest, which I was really, really pleased by. So definitely, as I mentioned before in a couple of my other videos, if you've been watching, I really didn't enjoy this author duo. I'm excited to see more by them in the future. And then the next book I am going to chat about is the only book that I read twice this year, and that is 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. This was a Christmas themed romance that I read in July, and then I read it in December for the Tis the Season-a-thon, and both reads were so fun. It basically follows this girl named Sophie, and she winds up breaking up with her boyfriend the week of Christmas break, and her big loud family decides that they are going to set her up on 10 blind dates leading from before Christmas Eve to New Year's Day. And it was just so fun. I love the dates. I love the big loud Italian family. At least I think that they were Italian. They may not have been Italian, but I come from a very, very big family, and that is something my family would do, like, in a heartbeat. I loved the characters. I loved all the dates. I just thought it was so fun. It had a nice balance between self-discovery, romance, but also really focused on friendship and dynamics with your cousins. And as someone who lives that life and has a lot of cousins, it can get a little bit crazy sometimes with all the relationships and all the stuff you have to manage. I read this twice, and I don't normally read books twice in 1 year. It kind of feels like cheating, but I wanted to read it again during the holidays, and it was such a fast-paced read. So that is my thoughts on why 10 Blind Dates made this list. And if I didn't love it as much as I did, I probably wouldn't have read it twice, but I totally did. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on 10 Blind Dates. And if you have not checked out this book when this video goes live, I highly recommend it. It's a really, really quick read, and it's perfect between New Year's, like any time in the month of December, because it's like over like 12 days, which I thought was really, really cool. And then the next book I'm going to chat about is Deadly Little Scandals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I've been having a lot of luck with sequels this year. Like, I read book one and I liked it. I didn't love it, but I read book two and it blew me away. This was the case with this book as well. Like, I read Little White Lies and I liked it. I thought it was a fun read, and it was, a mystery late. This book, however, the end of this book, like, blew my mind. I remember reading it, and I think I have it on a reading blog. I was like, what the hell just happened in this book? So it's basically the second book in the Little White Lies series, by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The first book was about Sawyer, who realizes that her mom lived a very, very rich, privileged life, and she decides she's going to go to do Deb season, so her grandmother will help pay for her to go to college, basically. But she basically gets sucked into this rich lifestyle, and the second book involves a secret society, and a lot of other drama ensues. And the second book was amazing. I loved it so much, and I really need to reread this series very, very close together, because book one and book two have a lot more interconnections than I realized. Jennifer Lynn Barnes is a massive planner, and her books are so subtly done. It doesn't really hit you until like the last 20 pages that, oh my goodness, what just happened? But I loved it. I really loved it. I doubt we're gonna get another book in this series. Like, we might, but I'm pretty sure it's done. But I just thoroughly loved it. If you have not checked out her mystery novels, totally do it. I would say that this book is a really I would say it's a lighter mystery, but it's a very, very fast paced mystery and it's very, very tightly wound. So if you like books like that have a complicated mystery, um, I would recommend this read. In my previous reviews of this, I said it was more like Pretty Little Liars. It is like Pretty Little Liars because it's very, very manageable and very, very easy to read, but the stories are so complicated that I retract that opinion. But it was just such a fun read, and I really cannot wait to see what she is writing next. And then the next book I'm going to chat about, this book is technically fantasy, but it's also mystery, so I was really unsure what category to put it in. So I put it in this one, and this is Wicked Deep by Shara Anja. I So many of my top 10 reads happen on a car trip I took with my cousin. Legendary, Aurora Rising, and Wicked Deep. I think it's just because I was so focused on what I was reading and like nothing else because I was in a car for like 14 hours. But this was a read that just, again, like Deadly Little Scandals, really blew me away towards the end. Basically follows this girl, and she lives in a town where in the past, many, many years ago, um, they basically killed witches. And there are these three witches' souls that always take over girls every year, and they leave bodies in their wake, basically. I'm doing a really, really bad explaining this. But so you follow this girl. I think her name's Penny. I could be wrong. I can't remember her name. And you follow her during the summer, and it was really good. There was such a creepy feeling, like very, very atmospheric. It would be a great read to read like during like Halloween because it's very, very creepy and spooky. And there's a boy coming to town that knows nothing about this myth, and she's trying to make sure that he's safe. And oh my goodness, so much stuff happens in this book. It was like on the edge of my seat. I could not believe the end and the twist that the story took. It was just such a great read. Definitely a 5-star read for me, for sure. If you're looking for a creepy read, but that you could still read in the summer because it does take place over the summer, I'd recommend this book. It was just so well done, and her mystery crafting was amazing, and so was her world building. Those things were stand out, and I really did also like the characters. The next book I'm gonna chat about is the third Van Beeker novel, and that's the Van Beekers to the Rescue. I find these books to be really, really cute and really, really charming. This basically is the third book in this series, and it follows a group of kids that are growing up in New York City, right near my old college, City College. And this book, their mother is frantically trying to start a baking business, and their kids cause a lot of mischief in this process. And it's all about them trying to save the day so their mother can keep their baking business or keep her baking business. And I love this book. I read it so quickly. It was just such a fun read. So charming, and it's really a contemporary book that's so based on real life, and I think like it was nice. It was just a nice read. I really love the characters. I love seeing how they grow up. I love the parent involvement in this series. It's definitely a strong point for me. And I just love the characters. So that's why I made this list, and I'm really curious to see more adventures of these characters in the future. And then the next book I'm going to chat about is The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord. I was lucky enough to receive an arc of The Map from Here to There at BEA, so I of course had to read The Start of Me and You, and I absolutely adored this book. I really am a big fan of contemporary novels that have like a strong group of like a strong friend group, and this book dealt with the aftermath of grief, and it follows this lead character as she is trying to navigate that. Her boyfriend of like 3 months died tragically in a swimming accident the year before, and she's kind of frantically trying to put the pieces of her life back together. But when a new boy and new opportunities come into her life, it kind of turns her life on its head. But I love this book. I really loved it. I thought it dealt with the dealing of grief in such an interesting way, and I just love the friendship dynamics and how and where the story went. I also really did love The Map from Here to There, and I really hope this book becomes like a trilogy, because I really thoroughly enjoyed it so much. But that is why The Start of Me and You made this list, because it really was a standout, and I really do love these characters, and they might be my second favorite group of contemporary characters to date. I really do love the characters in um, The Unexpected Everything, but I also equally did like these characters as well. So that is why the start of me and you made this list. And the last book I am going to chat about in this video is Call It What You Want by Bridget Camera. This is the third book in her companion series, and again, this is another book that has a dual point of view, which I always like, and it also dealt with two students that were dealing with the aftermath of some very bad decisions that were made the previous year. The girl's decision was more of her own making, and the boy in this book, his father was an embezzler of funds that basically crashed this town. Um, so that was basically the premise of that book. And I really loved it. It was an emotional gut punch story that just really broke my heart a little bit. Um, but I thought that it dealt with like some really interesting issues like cheating and are you your parents? Should you be punished for your parents' behavior? But I really liked the romance. I liked how these characters like connected. And the boy's story was just so heartbreaking. There was a lot of issues that were dealing with him, and the girl had so many complicated issues as well. It was a very like emotionally heartbreaking story, but one that easily captured my attention. And I'm really curious to see what other characters she's going to focus on because there was quite a few she could. I was really invested in the boy's point of view, but the girl's point of view was also like equally captivating. It was a very like hard read. It was like an emotional read, but one that I really thoroughly enjoyed reading. So that is all the books the top 10 reads that I wanted to chat with you guys about. Let me know in the comments what were some of your top 10 contemporary themed reads that you found that made your end of the list at 2019, and we'll talk about it in the comments. But I hope you guys are having a great holiday season, that you guys are enjoying Bookmas, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow for another video. Bye.